It's 2:17 in the morning. The room is silent. The lights are off. The world has finally gone to sleep. But your mind has just begun its shift. It starts quietly. One memory drifts into your awareness. A conversation you thought you'd forgotten. You remember the exact words, the look on their face, the thing you should have said instead. You tell yourself to let it go. But another thought arrives. What if tomorrow goes wrong? Then another. What if I'm falling behind? What if I never become the person I wanted to be? Before you realize what's happening, you've left your bed without moving an inch. Your body is still beneath the blanket, but your mind has traveled years into the past and decades into a future that doesn't even exist. Your heart begins to beat faster. Your breathing becomes heavier. Your muscles tighten, as though danger is standing in the room. But there is no danger, only thoughts. And somehow, thoughts have become powerful enough to steal your peace. If you've ever experienced this, you're not alone. Millions of people lose sleep every single night. Not because they're in physical danger, not because their lives are falling apart, but because they've become trapped inside stories their own minds continue to tell. What's strange is that the mind always seems to choose the same time. Not while you're driving, not while you're eating lunch, not during the busiest part of your day. It waits, patiently, until the world becomes quiet. Then it speaks. Have you ever wondered why? Why does your mind become louder when everything around you becomes silent? Most people think it's because nighttime creates anxiety, but that's not what happens. Night doesn't create your thoughts. It removes your distractions. All day long, your attention is borrowed. Your phone demands it. Your work consumes it. Conversations interrupt it. Music fills every empty moment. The modern world has become remarkably good at helping you avoid yourself. From the moment you wake up, something is always asking for your attention. A notification, an email, a headline, a video, another scroll, another distraction. Hour after hour, your mind never gets a chance to sit quietly with what it's carrying. Then night arrives. The noise disappears. And for the first time all day, you meet the person you've been avoiding, yourself. That meeting is uncomfortable for many people, not because they're weak, but because silence has a strange way of exposing everything that busyness hides. The disappointment you never processed, the conversation you never finished, the fear you've been pretending doesn't exist, the dream you're terrified will never happen. They've all been waiting, not to attack you, but to be acknowledged. Yet instead of listening, most people begin fighting. They argue with memories. They negotiate with the future. They rehearse conversations that may never happen. They search for certainty in a world that has never promised it. And that's where exhaustion truly begins. Not in the body, in the mind. Here's something almost nobody realizes. Your brain doesn't actually care whether you're peaceful. Its first priority is survival. Thousands of years ago, this kept your ancestors alive. If there was a rustle in the bushes, assuming it was danger was safer than assuming it was the wind. A false alarm cost very little. Ignoring a real threat could cost everything. So the brain evolved to scan for problems, to predict danger, to imagine worst-case scenarios before they happened. It was brilliant for surviving the wilderness, but it struggles in the modern world. Because now the lions have changed. They're no longer hiding behind trees. They're hiding inside emails, inside deadlines, inside financial worries, inside relationships, inside the opinions of strangers. Your brain still responds the same way. It searches, predicts, rehearses, repeats. It believes that if it can think long enough, it can protect you from pain. But here's the cruel irony. The strategy designed to protect your peace becomes the very thing that destroys it. Think about the last week. How many conversations have you replayed? How many imaginary arguments have you won inside your own head? How many disasters have you prevented that never actually happened? Probably none. Yet your body reacted as though every one of them was real. Your heart couldn't tell the difference. Your nervous system couldn't tell the difference. Your sleep certainly couldn't tell the difference. This is why overthinking feels so exhausting. You aren't living one life. You're living dozens. The real one and all the imaginary versions your mind keeps creating. Marcus Aurelius understood this long before neuroscience existed. As Emperor of Rome, he carried responsibilities most of us can barely imagine. Wars stretched across the empire. Political betrayals surrounded him. Disease swept through cities. Every morning brought another crisis. If anyone had a reason to lose sleep, it was him. Yet in the quiet pages of his journal, he kept returning to one simple truth. Your peace is not stolen by events. It is stolen by the meaning you give them. Read that again. Not the event, the meaning. One person sees uncertainty and feels possibility. Another sees the same uncertainty and feels terror. The world didn't change. The interpretation did. That's where your freedom begins. Not by changing every circumstance, but by changing your relationship with your own thoughts. Because here's the question that could change every night for the rest of your life. What if your thoughts aren't trying to tell you the truth? What if they're only trying to prepare you for a future that may never arrive? And if that's true, should every thought really be believed? Or is there another way to live? That question transformed the lives of the Stoics, and before this night is over, it may begin transforming yours too. For centuries, people have believed that freedom comes from controlling the outside world. Get the promotion, find the perfect relationship, earn more money, solve every problem. Then, finally, you'll have peace. But what if that promise has been backwards all along? What if peace was never waiting at the end of perfect circumstances? What if it was waiting at the end of a different relationship with your own mind? This is exactly what a former slave named Epictetus tried to teach. Think about that for a moment. He owned almost nothing. He had no wealth, no political power, no guarantee of safety. By every modern definition, he should have been miserable. Yet thousands of years later, people still study his words because he possessed something millions of successful people still struggle to find: an undisturbed mind. He understood a truth that sounds simple, but takes a lifetime to practice. You cannot always choose what enters your life, but you can choose what is allowed to remain inside your mind. At first, that sounds impossible. After all, thoughts appear automatically. No one chooses to suddenly remember an embarrassing moment from high school. No one decides to imagine losing their job while lying in bed. The thoughts simply arrive. The mistake is believing that because a thought arrives, it deserves your attention. Imagine sitting in a cafe beside a busy street. Hundreds of people walk past the window. Some are laughing, some are arguing, some are rushing somewhere important. Do you stand up and follow every stranger you see? Of course not. You notice them, then you let them continue on their journey. Your thoughts deserve the same treatment. They are visitors, not permanent residents. Yet most people do the exact opposite. A single thought appears, what if I fail? Instead of letting it pass, they invite it inside. They offer it a chair. Then another thought joins it. You're already behind everyone else. Soon the entire room is full. Regret walks in. Fear sits down beside it. Self-doubt pours itself a drink. Before long, your peaceful bedroom has become a crowded meeting room, filled with voices that were never invited. And then you wonder why sleep refuses to come. Here's something fascinating. The Stoics never tried to eliminate fear. They tried to shorten its stay. That's a profound difference. Because fear itself isn't the enemy. It's a signal. Sometimes it's useful. It warns you when something genuinely requires your attention. But overthinking transforms a signal into a lifestyle. Instead of hearing the alarm, you keep pressing replay. Again, and again, and again. Eventually, you no longer know the difference between preparing for life and postponing it. Marcus Aurelius refused to live that way. Every evening, after carrying the weight of an empire, he returned to the same discipline. He reminded himself that tomorrow would arrive whether he worried or not. The sunrise had never once asked for his permission. Morning would come. The future would unfold. His responsibility wasn't to predict every outcome. His responsibility was to meet whatever arrived with courage. Think about how much energy you spend trying to negotiate with tomorrow. You rehearse conversations before they happen. You prepare for rejection that hasn't arrived. You defend yourself against criticism that may never be spoken. You carry emotional weight for events that don't even exist yet. It's like opening an umbrella inside your house because it might rain next week. The action feels productive, but it changes nothing. The rain will come, or it won't. Either way, you've spent today carrying something you never needed. That's what overthinking really is. Carrying tomorrow's weather on today's shoulders. No wonder your mind feels exhausted. No wonder your body struggles to rest. You've been carrying days that haven't even begun. Here's an exercise I'd like you to remember the next time your thoughts begin racing. Don't ask yourself, how do I stop thinking? Ask something much more powerful. Is this thought asking me to act, or only asking me to worry? That question changes everything, because action creates movement. Worry creates circles. Action says, send the email tomorrow. Worry says, imagine every possible way the email could go wrong. Action says, apologize for your mistake. Worry says, replay the mistake another 50 times before you sleep. One moves your life forward, the other traps you exactly where you are. This is where the Stoics separated themselves from almost everyone else. They didn't measure progress by how little they feared. They measured progress by how quickly they returned to the present. Because the present is the only place where your hands can actually do anything. You cannot change yesterday. You cannot touch tomorrow. You only ever have this moment, this breath, this decision. And in the next part, I'm going to explain the nightly practice that allowed Seneca to put down the weight of the entire day before his head touched the pillow. A practice so simple that you can begin using it tonight, yet powerful enough to completely change your relationship with sleep. Most people think they need a better pillow, a quieter room, a stronger sleeping pill. But what if none of those things are the real solution? What if the problem isn't that your body doesn't know how to sleep? It's that your mind doesn't know how to stop carrying the day. Imagine hiking up a mountain with a backpack filled with rocks. Hour after hour, the weight presses harder against your shoulders. Finally, you reach home. You walk through the front door. You sit on the couch. But instead of taking the backpack off, you keep wearing it. Wouldn't that seem absurd? Of course it would. Yet that's exactly what millions of people do every single night. They carry the arguments, the deadlines, the disappointments, the expectations, the mistakes, straight into bed. Then they wonder why rest never comes. Sleep isn't only about closing your eyes, it's about putting down what you're no longer meant to carry. Seneca understood this better than almost anyone. Every evening before he allowed himself to rest, he practiced a quiet ritual. He didn't open another scroll. He didn't search for another distraction. He didn't try to outrun his thoughts. Instead, he met them, one by one. He would review his day with complete honesty, not to punish himself, not to replay every mistake, not to convince himself he wasn't good enough. He simply asked himself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short of the man I want to become? What will I do differently tomorrow? Then he stopped. That last step is more important than all the others, because most people never stop. They answer the questions, then immediately begin inventing 10 new ones. But what if tomorrow goes badly? What if I fail again? What if people don't forgive me? Notice what just happened. The review became another courtroom. Once again, you became the prosecutor, the witness, the defendant, and the judge. You sentenced yourself before tomorrow even had a chance to begin. The Stoics never intended self-reflection to become self-punishment. Reflection creates wisdom, rumination creates suffering. Those are not the same thing. Think about a mirror. Its purpose is to show you what is there, not to trap you inside your own reflection. A healthy mind uses the past as a teacher. An anxious mind uses the past as a prison. That's a distinction worth remembering, because every night you're making a choice. You can revisit today to learn from it, or you can revisit it to relive it. Only one of those leads to peace. Here's another habit that's quietly stealing your sleep. Perfectionism. Most people don't realize they're perfectionists because they imagine perfectionism looks like flawless work. It doesn't. More often, perfectionism sounds like this. I should have handled that conversation better. I should have known what to say. I should have seen this coming. I should be further ahead by now. Listen carefully to that word, should. It's one of the heaviest words in the human vocabulary, because it argues with reality. Reality says, it happened. Perfectionism says, it shouldn't have. Reality says, today is over. Perfectionism says, go back and fix it. But you can't. No one can. Not even Marcus Aurelius, not even Seneca, not even the wisest people who have ever lived. So why do you expect yourself to possess a power that no human being has ever possessed? The Stoics didn't ask themselves to become perfect. They asked themselves to become better. There's a world of difference between those two goals. Perfection demands that you never fall. Growth asks only that you stand up one more time. And that's a goal you can achieve, not tomorrow, tonight, right here, before you sleep. I want to give you a practice that has helped countless people reclaim their nights. It's so simple that your mind might dismiss it. Don't let it. Because the simplest disciplines are often the ones we neglect the most. Tonight, before you turn off the light, take a piece of paper, not your phone, paper. Write down every thought that's demanding your attention, every worry, every task, every fear, every unfinished conversation, everything. Don't organize it. Don't solve it. Just empty it. Imagine your mind as a cup that's been filled to the very top. As long as you keep pouring more into it, it will overflow. Writing is how you pour some of it out. Not because the paper solves your problems, but because your brain no longer has to carry them all at once. You're telling your mind something it desperately needs to hear. You don't have to remember this tonight. We'll deal with it tomorrow. That single act creates something your nervous system has been craving. Permission. Permission to rest. Permission to stop performing. Permission to be human. Because contrary to what your anxious mind believes, you are not responsible for solving your entire life before midnight. You're only responsible for meeting this moment with honesty. And that brings us to one final lesson. It's the lesson that transformed Marcus Aurelius from an ordinary man into one of history's greatest examples of inner strength. It's also the lesson that can change the way you think about sleep, about peace, and perhaps even about your entire life. Because once you understand it, you'll realize that the goal was never simply to stop overthinking. The goal was to become the kind of person that overthinking can no longer control. One day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you'll lie down in bed, close your eyes, and notice something strange. The room is just as quiet as it has always been. The darkness hasn't changed. Tomorrow is still uncertain. There are still problems waiting for you. There are still conversations you'll need to have. Bills to pay, responsibilities to carry, people who misunderstand you, dreams that still require years of work. The world hasn't become easier. So why do you suddenly feel lighter? Because the weight you were carrying was never the world. It was your resistance to it. For years, you believed peace would arrive after you solved every problem, after everyone understood you, after your career finally reached the place you wanted, after your bank account looked different, after your future became predictable. But peace kept moving further away. Every milestone simply created another. Every achievement introduced another expectation. Every answer gave birth to another question. You weren't chasing peace. You were chasing an ending that doesn't exist. The Stoics understood something that most people spend an entire lifetime trying to discover. The mind always finds another reason to worry. If you solve today's problem, it immediately begins searching for tomorrow's. Not because your mind is broken, but because that's what it evolved to do. A mind without discipline doesn't know when to stop searching. That's why peace isn't something you find, it's something you decide to practice. Every single day, every single night. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that your life becomes what your thoughts make of it. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say your life becomes what happens to you. He didn't say your life becomes what other people think about you. He didn't say your life becomes your income, or your status, or your past. He pointed somewhere much closer, your thoughts. Because every experience in your life must first pass through your mind before it reaches your emotions. Change the filter, and you begin changing the experience. Think about two men caught in the same storm. The rain falls equally on both. The wind shows no favoritism. One spends the entire walk home complaining about the weather. The other simply opens his umbrella and continues walking. The storm is identical. The suffering is not. Life works the same way. Some people spend years fighting reality. Others learn to move with it. The difference isn't luck, it's perspective. And perspective is a discipline, not a personality, not a talent, a discipline. Which means it can be trained, just like a muscle. Every night that you notice yourself getting lost inside your thoughts and gently bring your attention back to the present, you're strengthening that muscle. Every time you refuse to replay an old argument, you're strengthening it. Every time you choose acceptance over resistance, you're strengthening it. You may not notice the change immediately. Neither does someone become physically stronger after one workout. But weeks later, months later, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. One day, someone will say something that once would have kept you awake until 3 in the morning. You'll hear it. Think about it for a moment. And then, you'll let it go. Not because you stopped caring, but because you've learned that your peace is worth more than your pride. Another day, something won't go according to plan. The old version of you would have spent hours imagining every possible consequence. The new version pauses, breathes, adjusts, and keeps moving. Because you finally realized something powerful. Calm is not the absence of problems. Calm is the refusal to let problems occupy your mind rent-free. That's what emotional strength really looks like. Not becoming emotionless, not pretending nothing affects you, but refusing to surrender your inner world to every passing circumstance. This is where so many people misunderstand Stoicism. They imagine the Stoics were teaching people to suppress their emotions. They weren't. Marcus Aurelius felt grief. Seneca experienced fear. Epictetus knew pain. They were human. The difference was that they refused to become servants to those emotions. They felt them. They learned from them. Then, they released them. That's the invitation Stoicism offers you. Not a life without emotion, but a life where emotion no longer becomes your master. So tonight, when you place your head on your pillow, don't ask yourself, how do I stop thinking? Ask yourself a different question. Which thoughts deserve my attention? That single question can change your life, because attention is your greatest currency. Whatever you repeatedly give it to will grow. Feed fear, and fear grows. Feed regret, and regret grows. Feed gratitude, and gratitude grows. Feed wisdom, and wisdom grows. Every night, you're watering something. The only question is, what kind of mind are you growing? Maybe tonight, for the first time in years, you won't try to solve your entire future before falling asleep. Maybe you'll simply breathe, Notice the silence. Feel the weight of the bed beneath you. Allow the day to end. Trust that tomorrow's version of you will handle tomorrow's challenges. Just as today's version handled today's, you have survived every difficult day that once seemed impossible. Every challenge you thought would break you. Every uncertain morning. Every painful season. You're still here. That deserves more trust than your fear. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Stoic Discipline and join thousands of people who are learning to build a quieter mind, stronger discipline, and unshakable inner peace through timeless Stoic wisdom. And I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, finish this sentence. Tonight, I choose. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's acceptance. Maybe it's courage. Whatever your answer is, write it down. Not for the algorithm, for yourself. Because every lasting transformation begins with one conscious decision. If this video helped calm your mind even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear these words before they go to sleep tonight. You never know whose restless mind might finally find a moment of peace. And remember this, the goal was never to silence your mind. The goal was to become so grounded in who you are that even when your mind grows noisy, your peace remains quiet. Sleep well. Tomorrow will come. And when it does, meet it with a clear mind, a steady heart, and the quiet confidence of someone who no longer fears their own thoughts.